PS Vita. When Sony launched the PlayStation Vita in 2011 in Japan and early 2012 worldwide, it looked like a guaranteed success. It had a gorgeous OLED screen, dual analog sticks, a rear touchpad, and the power to run near console quality games on the go. On paper, it was everything handheld gamers had been dreaming of, but from day one, the Vita faced an uphill battle. The price was steep, $250 for the Wi-Fi model, and memory cards that cost way more than standard SD cards. Then there was the timing. Just as the Vita hit shelves, mobile gaming was exploding on smartphones. Why pay hundreds for a handheld and $40 per game when you could play Angry Birds or Temple Run for free? Sony promised big name exclusives, but after the first year, the release schedule slowed to a crawl. Even the games that did release often got better sales on PS3 or PS4. Despite a passionate fanbase, the Vita couldn't gain mainstream traction. Within a few years, Sony quietly shifted focus, and the Vita became one of the gaming's most infamous what could have been stories. Game.com. Tiger Electronics thought it could take down Nintendo with the Game.com in 1997. It had bold ideas, internet access, a touchscreen, even a PDA-style calendar app. But there was just one massive problem. It was horrible to use. The screen was a blurry mess that left fast-moving games unplayable. Touch controls required a stylus that barely worked, and while the Game.com launched with big-name licenses like Sonic Jam and Resident Evil 2, the ports were barely recognizable. The audio was scratchy, the gameplay sluggish, and worst of all, it just wasn't fun. Tiger hyped the system hard, even claiming it was the future of portable gaming. But they misunderstood their audience. It wasn't kids looking for productivity features, it was gamers who wanted smooth, exciting experiences. Retailers quickly dropped it, developers fled, and Tiger's dream of competing with Nintendo collapsed within a year. Only around 300,000 units were ever sold. In trying to do too much too early, Game.com became one of the most disappointing handheld launches ever, well known for overpromising and under-delivering. Atari Lynx. Atari's attempt to beat Nintendo to the punch came in 1989 with the Lynx, the first color handheld console ever released. It was way ahead of its time. A backlit screen, multiplayer support through link cables, and even the ability to flip the display for left-handed players. With all these features, it should have easily taken down the Game Boy. But in reality, the launch was a mess. Atari priced it at $179, nearly double the Game Boy, and it ate through 6 AA batteries in under 4 hours. The screen, while colorful, was nearly impossible to see in sunlight. Then came the supply chain issues. The Lynx had a staggered launch that frustrated early adopters, and it hit shelves with barely any games. Nintendo, meanwhile, had Tetris bundled with the Game Boy, and it instantly took over. Atari tried to fight back with price cuts and hardware revisions, but that didn't change much. The Lynx never recovered. It sold under 3 million units in total, while Nintendo's Game Boy crossed 100 million. Despite its innovation, the Lynx launch flopped so hard that it ended up becoming a forgotten relic of Atari's final days in the hardware race. If you've enjoyed this video so far, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. I'll be posting a new video every day. Now here's the next section. Neo Geo Pocket Color. In 1999, SNK launched the Neo Geo Pocket Color to compete with Nintendo's Game Boy Color. And believe it or not, it was actually a solid handheld. The hardware was sleek, battery life was great, and it had a clicky, satisfying joystick that made 2D fighters like King of Fighters R2 and SNK vs Capcom feel amazing on the go. But despite its quality, the launch just didn't stick. For one, SNK was already struggling financially. They lacked the marketing power to take on Nintendo's global reach. Then came the software drought. While the system had a few standout titles, most of its library was made up of obscure arcade ports and niche Japanese games. To make things worse, it launched right before Sony announced the PlayStation 2, so the gaming world was focused on the future of 3D, not portable 2D. By 2000, SNK filed for bankruptcy in North America, pulling the plug on the handheld entirely. The Neo Geo Pocket Color could have carved out a niche as the fighting game fans' dream handheld, but its weak launch, poor timing, and lack of developer support doomed it from the start. PSP Go. In 2009, Sony released the PSP Go, an all-digital redesign of the original PSP. It had a sliding screen, built-in 16GB storage, Bluetooth support, and a compact form factor that looked ahead of its time. But from the moment it launched, the PSP Go faced backlash. The biggest issue, no UMD drive. That meant if you owned physical PSP games, they were now useless. Sony didn't offer a clear upgrade path or trade-in program. You were expected to rebuy digital versions of games you already owned. On top of that, the price was absurd, $250, even though the original PSP 3000, still with a disc drive, was being sold at $170 with bundles. To make matters worse, not every PSP title was available on the digital store. That meant early adopters found entire franchises missing from the library. Developers weren't happy either. UMD sales were still dominant, and the Go's niche install base didn't justify digital-only support. While the hardware itself was solid, the launch was a confusing mess. I'm even confused just talking about it. The PSP Go never recovered, and Sony quietly discontinued it in 2011. It was a bold idea released way too early, and the market just wasn't ready. Nokia Engage. The Nokia Engage, launched in 2003, was supposed to be the ultimate fusion of gaming and mobile phones, but instead, it became a legendary failure. The idea wasn't terrible. Play full 3D games like Tomb Raider or Tony Hawk on a phone you could also text with. But execution, a total disaster. The Engage's design was awkward and clunky. To change games, you had to remove the back cover and take out the entire battery. And making calls, you had to hold it sideways against your face, earning it the nickname Taco Phone. The button layout was also a nightmare for gaming, with tiny keys meant for dialing, not for fast-paced action. On top of that, it launched at $299, more than the Game Boy Advance SP, and had barely any killer apps. Most games felt like bad ports, and the screen was vertically oriented, making everything feel cramped. Nokia tried to fix things with the Engage QD a year later, but consumers weren't interested. Gamers mocked it, developers left, and sales tanked. The Engage was Nokia's shot at owning mobile gaming, but it ended up becoming a prime example of design failure. Gizmondo. If there was ever a handheld launch cursed from the start, it was the Gizmondo. Released in 2005 by a shady Swedish company called Tiger Telematics, this device was a full-blown scandal. On paper, the Gizmondo had wild features: GPS tracking, SMS messaging, music playback, even a built-in camera. It was marketed as the future of mobile gaming, launching at a premium $400 price point, but had one huge problem: no games. At launch, only a handful of bland titles were available, none of which could justify the cost. The screen was decent, but the controls were stiff, and the overall experience felt unfinished. Worse, Tiger Telematics blew millions on absurd marketing, renting a Beverly Hills storefront, sponsoring a race car team, even throwing a celebrity-studded launch party. Behind the scenes, several executives had criminal backgrounds, and the company burned through cash like it was nothing. Within a year, Tiger went bankrupt. Only 25,000 units were ever sold, and the Gizmondo vanished almost overnight. It was one of the most spectacular tech implosions the industry has ever seen. WonderSwan Color. Bandai's WonderSwan Color launched in 2000 as Japan's answer to the Game Boy Color. Co-designed by Gunpei Yokoi, the same mind behind Nintendo's Game Boy, it had strong potential. It was compact, affordable, and boasted excellent battery life. But WonderSwan even had a unique feature. Games could be played vertically or horizontally, depending on the layout. In Japan, it saw some modest success with big-name support from Square Enix and a few Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy titles. But when it came to international appeal, the launch completely missed the mark. Bandai never officially released the WonderSwan outside of Japan, which meant gamers in North America and Europe never had access. Even in Japan, the console suffered from long development gaps between major titles. Nintendo had the Game Boy Advance on the way, and with Pokemon dominating everything, Bandai couldn't compete. Worse, Bandai merged with Namco in 2005 and stopped supporting the device entirely. Despite decent hardware, the WonderSwan Color never broke into the mainstream. It's remembered today more as a forgotten import curiosity than a real competitor, and its launch fizzled out quietly under Nintendo's massive shadow. Playdate. The Playdate, announced in 2019 and finally shipped in limited batches starting in 2022, was one of the quirkiest handhelds ever made. It had a black and white screen, no backlight, and most famously, a crank. Yes, a literal crank on the side of the device used for gameplay. It was a bold, artistic project from Panic, the same company behind Firewatch. But when it came to the actual launch, things didn't go smoothly. Pre-orders sold out fast, but production delays due to chip shortages pushed shipments back by months, even years for some. Early adopters were confused about the device's seasonal game delivery model, where 2 games were unlocked per week over Wi-Fi. Many of the games felt more like experimental demos than full experiences, and casual players were left wondering what exactly they had paid $179 for. While the Playdate had charm and indie cred, its niche appeal, high price, and lack of mass market support made the launch feel more like a Kickstarter prototype than a polished product. For many, it ended up being more of a novelty than a true handheld gaming platform. PlayStation Portal. In 2023, Sony surprised everyone by announcing the PlayStation Portal, a streaming-only handheld designed solely to remote play your PS5 over Wi-Fi. No native games, no cloud support, no apps. Just a screen sandwiched between a DualSense controller shell. And when it launched later that year for $200, the confusion hit hard. Many assumed it would be a successor to the PSP or PS Vita. Instead, the Portal required you to already own a PS5 and have a stable internet connection just to function. Worse, it couldn't stream from the cloud, meaning you couldn't use it on the go unless your PS5 was powered on at home. The launch left a lot of gamers disappointed. While the hardware felt premium and the screen looked great, the functionality was limited and the value proposition unclear. Reviews were mixed and scalpers snatched up early units, driving resale prices even higher. For hardcore PlayStation fans, it was a niche luxury, but for most, it felt like Sony had finally revisited handheld gaming, only to walk right past the opportunity to make something truly useful. The Portal's launch wasn't a disaster, but it definitely missed the mark. Which console launch surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below.